What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you the games I am most excited for in 2024. As we start to wrap up 2023, I've been looking forward a bit, checking out what the next year has for us in terms of game releases, and while the following year here is going to be, frankly, I would say much less busy than 2023 was, at least at a glance, there are still some interesting titles that I'm looking forward to. With that in mind, however, a few games that were originally supposed to release in 2023 that got pushed to early 2024, I intentionally left off this list, like the Thaumaturge or Broken Roads. But even in doing that, a lot of the games on this list don't have official release dates yet. In fact, a just quick Google search of games coming out in 2024 will show you that the vast majority of them don't have actual release dates yet for anything past like the first 3 months of the year. So it's hard to say exactly when we'll see some of these, but currently they are slated for that year. So with no further ado, let's jump into it. First and foremost, we have Dragon's Dogma, one that does actually have a release date for March 22nd. Like a lot of people, I enjoyed the original game. I think it did a lot of fun and unique things that was really only held back by the fact that it was a bit of a janky experience that was known to have an extreme amount of cut content. So I think if Dragon's Dogma 2 can simply clean up some of those rough edges of the first game while really delivering on that scale and quality that the first game could have used, then I think Dragon's Dogma 2 will be a pretty easy win. And so far, what they've shown off in gameplay reveals, trailers, deep dives, etc., it all looks very promising, which has me pretty excited to play it, and I'm glad it's coming out early in the year. Though as of this moment, that particular game will likely be my first big review for new releases that year, unless something just so happens to change. Now, next up on the list we have Avowed, a first-person action-adventure from Obsidian Entertainment, set in the Pillars of Eternity universe known as Eora, which is something I personally have a lot of love for. That is that setting and everything that they use for their Pillars of Eternity series, and given the way that the second game ended, it has kind of bummed me out over the years that we haven't been able to explore more of what that universe has to offer, which Avowed is finally coming along to do something about. And that is reason enough to have me excited to actually play this one, but it is probably worth a mention that after its initial gameplay reveal, a few people were concerned about various aspects of the overall scope of the thing being a bit reined in, as it was initially billed as some big open world thing, which is clearly not what they're going for now. That's not super important to me. I think Obsidian especially has done a lot with reining in the scope and breadth of their titles to pack a ton of content and replayability into games that certainly don't need a wide sweeping open world to make that work. Overall, though, I love the setting that this game takes place in. I enjoy almost every game from the people who have made it, and it'll almost certainly be one of my biggest titles of next year. And while truth be told, I don't expect this one to have mass market appeal or anything like that, what I do hope happens is that it gets enough attention that Obsidian does more with the setting here, because I really do love it. Moving right along, however, we have a controversial one, let's say, with Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. Chances are, if you're watching a video like this, I don't need to tell you about what's been going on with Bloodlines 2. It has had a very, very troubled development that has only recently, I would say, gotten properly back on track, with the revamped and reimagined version coming in 2024, likely I would say late in the year, with a pretty different direction than the initial pitch had with Hardsuit Labs before they got kicked off the project, and the Chinese room was brought in to work on it. Now, this is an interesting one because my excitement is obviously coupled with a ton of caution. In many ways, the reason I'm excited for this game is because I genuinely don't know how it's going to pan out. I hope it's good. I love the World of Darkness, the Vampire the Masquerade setting in particular, but that's also a franchise that has historically pretty bad games, and the revamped version of this that the Chinese room showed off had things that I thought were really cool and other parts that certainly gave me pause. And just given, again, the very tortured development around this one, it would be naive to go into this just expecting something amazing. I truly hope it's good, but realistically this could absolutely be a train wreck, which is why I think this will be one of my most important reviews next year, because giving people an accurate picture of what this game is going to be especially important with all the problems and trouble it has had. But either way, whether this game is a masterpiece or a train wreck or much more likely somewhere in between those two things, I'm absolutely here for it. Which brings us to number 4 on the list. A game that also did technically get a small pushback in release date with Banishers, The Ghosts of New Eden, now set to release on February 13th. This one is from Dogma, a studio with a, I would say, very wide range of games, many of which I've enjoyed quite a bit, like Chusson and Vampire. Banishers here, however, puts us in the role of two ghost hunters set in the late 1600s. Unfortunately, though, one of them is wounded and dies, which makes for an interesting back and forth, given that both of them get rid of ghosts for a living. Really sold this game on me was just the atmosphere from all the trailers and gameplay that they've shown, though technically the game will be an action-adventure, so while I'm not exactly expecting deep RPG systems at play here, Don't Nod knows how to tell a great story with unique gameplay elements, and that, combined with, again, just the sheer atmosphere and everything that has been shown off with this game, has me excited to check it out for myself, which again is going to be pretty early next year. One of my first new release reviews for the year, to be sure. Though that does bring us to our last entry with admittedly something very different, which is another Crab's Treasure. This is a sort of bizarre Souls-like that actually puts you in the role of a hermit crab on a treasure hunt to reclaim your repossessed shell. And I've actually gotten to play a few demos of this here and there, and this game is hilarious. It takes a lot of the very, I would say, more serious gameplay elements of the Souls-like series and applies it to just this ridiculous situation around this hermit crab and all these other sea creatures, and instead of equipment, you're picking up little makeshift shells for yourself that give you all sorts of temporary bonuses. But the actual Souls-like combat does seem to be decently challenging if you want it to be, which has all the usual suspects in terms of combat depth. But the game also just wants to be a fun title, which is why one of the difficulty options is to simply give your crab a gun that will one-shot bosses, which is hilarious to me. But games like this, I think, are great because they remind you that amid all these incredibly deep and serious titles that, of course, still have their place, games can just be fun for fun's sake, which is why I'm looking forward to it. No release date on this one, it is just slated for 2024, and I'm excited to mess around with it and just have some silly fun, which is what it's doing on this list. Now, eventually I will get around to cataloging basically every game I'm looking forward to next year. But early on here, I just wanted to share with you some of the initial ones that I'm the most excited to check out and play. But realistically, I think 2024 is likely to be mostly older game releases like it usually is, as the release schedule seems much less packed than the ridiculous amount of games we got in 2023. That said though, that's going to do it for this video. I certainly hope you enjoyed it. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.